The COVID lockdown policies is a big contributor to China's slowdown, but it's not the whole story. The biggest story in 2021 was the housing market. And that's not because of some of the fundamental change in China's economy. It was intentional by the government to slow down the lending to the real estate companies in order to prevent a debt crisis. So overall, I would still say China's economy is fundamentally sound, although the recovery shape is quite abnormal.
So the country's central bank has now cut interest rates for the first time since April 2020. What does that tell us? What does it mean?
Well, one implication that we can get immediately from this action is that the first quarter of the economy in 2022 will look very ugly. Because right now we're looking at a slowdown in the property sector, which usually contribute to about 30% of China's GDP growth. And on top of that, there was a high base from last year, which we had 18.3% of GDP growth in the first quarter. And that means we need to prepare for a sharp slowdown in the first quarter this year, or even a contraction. And we have seen a loss in confidence from not just domestic investors, but global investors on what the regulation environment would be. Because remember, last year we had this huge tech crackdown, and that has depressed many of the platform companies. So President Xi Jinping has given a talk on digital economy and digital transition, which is important for the long-term growth. But it will take a while before people gain back their strength and confidence in order to take out more loans or take out more finance from the capital market to make long-term investments.
There's another big existential threat to China's growth here, isn't there? And it is this. Despite the one-child policy, China's workforce, China's population is in danger of shrinking and damaging growth. What are the fixes for that, given that the policy lever so far doesn't seem to have worked?
Well, the policies, in my opinion, are kind of off the focus. Because now most of the policies are focusing on increasing the fertility rate, and that involves a lot of the incentives to provide more holidays for women and maybe giving more direct subsidies with children. But it doesn't really address the fundamental problem of the discrimination at the workplace and the career disruption, which is a lot bigger than in Western countries for women after they have children. And we also observe this kind of imbalance in China's labor market. So on the one hand, there is a decline in the labor force, for sure, that's correct. But on the other hand, there is a discrimination in the workplace by age, by gender. There is a well-known phenomenon called the 35 years old phenomenon. So once you're above 35 years old, many of the workplaces, like the universities, IT companies, or even public servants, this kind of sectors will not hire you or prioritize the employment. So I think unless China addresses those short-term urgencies in the labor market, to increase the long-term fertility is just going to be a long shot.